How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Flight Time. You may be wondering where Ken and myself have been for almost the past year. And the truth is, we took a little bit of a break. We took a step back to see what we wanted to do with this podcast, and I think we figured out a pretty good formula going forward. And we obviously changed the name. I personally wasn't really a fan of the Overcast.
I wasn't either. It just, I don't know.
I think I'm the person that came up with that name.
You did, and I'll give you credit where credit is due. You came up with the Overcast.
So we took a little bit of a break. I think one of the biggest things that was holding us back was trying to focus too much on video when a podcast is all audio based. So right now you're not seeing us, you're just hearing us, and that's going to be how it is.
And I think that's okay, because what nobody realized was we were traveling back and forth. Like, both of us were traveling back and forth. We flew back and forth to Florida and Philly a lot.
Yeah, it was a real pain.
It was. And when you couple video in there, it's like more time for exports, because our episodes were 30 minutes long on average. Mm-hmm. It was really taxing. Plus, we're trying to do content on our normal channels. Just made everything really tough.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm thinking about 3 episodes a week. That's something that I had in my mind. We're still sitting down, figuring out what we want to do with this podcast. And I think that because we're not doing video, we're going to be able to potentially make even more content just because it's a lot easier.
Yeah, and we don't have to worry about, there's no planning. We can sit down in front of a microphone, pop open our recorders, and just sort of go to town. And I sort of like our thought with this. We wanted it to be more of a conversation. I felt like when we were sitting there, in front of the camera, I don't know, you had to act a certain way. Does that make sense?
I always feel different when I'm on camera.
I feel like you and I are just having sort of a phone conversation right now. It's a little bit more, I don't know, natural.
I think our phone conversations are a little bit more explicit.
Yes, they are. Absolutely. It would be a lot of people would be like, wait a second, who are these guys?
Well, look, I don't want to harp too much on the intro. I don't want to sit here and waste all that time because we have a pretty interesting topic to talk about today, and that is TFRs and drones. Now, here's my stance on TFRs.
Should I understand what they are, because I actually had somebody ask me today what a TFR was.
Well, look, you made a video about this situation recently. We'll get more into it, but why don't you explain what a TFR is? Because you went through the different types of TFRs that there are.
So a TFR is a temporary flight restriction, and the FAA is in charge of implementing these. And they're typically, and I say typically, are planned well in advance. The FAA understands when a TFR is going to be in place, or they'll get usually advance notification from parties so they can provide a NOTAM, which is a notice to airmen, of these said restrictions in the airspace. So it's not like something that is, not planned or not predictable, with the exception of a natural disaster or first responder activity, which those will spring up, somewhat quickly, but everything else is pre-planned.
Yes. Now, what are the violations if you're caught flying in a TFR?
So the violations, and these are serious. I researched, and these can be applicable for not even drone pilots. They can be applicable for RC pilots and even private aircrafts. The fine is up to 1 year in prison or $100,000 or both. Both can be applied.
I didn't know it was both.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Now, to the best of my knowledge, the FAA has never had to give out one of these fines or jail time to an RC pilot or to a drone pilot.
Not to anybody flying a remote aircraft.
Yeah, I don't know. They probably have given out that penalty to regular pilots.
I think someone did get a fine in Seattle once because he crashed his drone, but I think that was something that was different because it actually crashed into the Space Needle, and it was he was going to get hit with 5 years or $50,000 fine, and I think they just settled on he wasn't allowed to fly a drone or something like that. There's an article floating around. I don't have all the details. I know people are really critical about details, but that was the only thing that I've ever seen where somebody was specifically fined in accordance. But that wasn't a TFR though.
Yeah. So here's how I think of TFRs, right? The only time that I've ever experienced a TFR living in Philadelphia is when the Phillies are playing. down at Citizens Bank Park in South Philly, they'll put up a TFR. Now, I don't do much flying down in South Philly, and where I live in West Philly, it almost seems like South Philly is on the other side of the universe. Like when you're in the city, when you're walking, when you're on a, in my case, when I'm on my boosted board, I just feel like that is on the other edge of the world. So I don't even think about flying my drone down there. But the thing is I'm impacted by that TFR because it expands so far out. And in some of the areas I fly, I sit there and I think to myself, wow, when the Phillies play, I can't fly here because of a TFR. So on one end of the spectrum, I'm a little bit upset because these TFRs, especially when you're further away from these specific stadiums, are just pointless. Now, when it comes to stadiums, I think that that's a little bit more of like a loose TFR than if there's VIP movement, right?
So I travel back and forth from Juneau. Mm-hmm. And this was like 2 years ago. I was using the applications and I would look to see whether or not Trump was down in South Florida. And that TFR extended all the way from Juneau, like all the way across West Palm, almost to Lauderdale area. It was a crazy large TFR. And I remember being down there when this TFR was in place. And one of my students in my class was a pilot. He was a private pilot. He flew his plane down. He couldn't fly back home for the weekend because he's a private plane and they weren't allowing them to take off during the president's stay.
I remember you telling me that. It's crazy to think that this TFR can be for something as simple as a baseball game to something as, complicated as moving the president.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, like we've never really discussed TFRs and, I guess the circumstances surrounding the situation that happened that, obviously Xavier did a video on it. He was really passionate about it. DJI has to put software in place to ensure safety. Now, I made a mistake of not really elaborating that not only they're protecting their brand with these, but they're also protecting people's safety and, of course, pilot safety as well with these TFRs and putting safeguards in place.
Now, let's back up a little bit. The reason that we're talking about these TFRs is because recently somebody on YouTube by the name of Drone X Factor, his real name is Xavier. I've met him in real life. I've flown with him. He lives up in New York. I'm in Philly, so we're pretty close. But he uploaded a video about one of his friend's drones going down in the water. Now, he was about 6,000 feet away from where his remote was. He was out over the water, and the drone just started landing because of a TFR. There was no way for him to cancel this auto land. There's no way for the drone to return to home. He was 6,000 feet away, probably like 200 feet in the air, and the drone just started going down.
So let's talk about observations from that video. For the start, you look at the map of where he was flying. And obviously nobody can see this, but if they watch my video, they watch Xavier's video, they'll be able to see it. The water he's over is dark blue. Yeah. Now there's a TFR in place, it's blue. It's dark blue, just like that. He was already in the TFR.
Exactly. And also, just to clarify, this wasn't like in New York City where there's a lot of airspace. It was up near the Tappan Zee Bridge. So it's outside of the city, right? I mean, that's at least a good thing. There's not like a TFR for, any of those airports. He's not in any crazy high class airspace.
They said they were doing demolition on the bridge. So was the TFR because they were doing demolition on the bridge?
I'm not sure because that bridge has been under construction for a while, and I don't know if they put up a TFR for that long, especially for construction. But again, I'm not sure exactly what the TFR was for. But as you said, as he was flying around, you could see that it was put in place before the drone started auto landing.
So according to protocol from DJI, the way the TFRs work is you're going to get a warning, and it's going to want the drone to return to home. Mm-hmm. And you can dismiss that return to home and keep flying. And then in another 30 seconds, you're going to be prompted with a return to home again. That's your second warning. You can dismiss that return to home. And the third time, it's going to attempt to auto land exactly like what was happened. That's like its safeguard. Now, what we're missing from that video is everything that happened before we saw what we saw. So obviously you have two sides of the coin. People are like, oh, DJI has no right to do this. Why would they just auto land it? Like, in the right mind, I don't see DJI saying, you know what, F it, we're going to land their drone, wherever it is. That doesn't make sense. They're going to give you warnings. They're going to give you chances. And that's exactly what was happening. Now, I'm not going to, in my right mind, test that. But according to what DJI support says and just doing some research, and I've reached out to Brendan, who does the legal for DJI, and I've also reached out to Romeo Dersher for comment.
Okay.
And neither have gotten back to me yet, but from all the research that I have done, that you get two warnings. basically.
Now I wish we got the full story here. I wish we were able to see this
We're never going to.
This flight from takeoff to landing. It was a screen recording, so I would assume that maybe there's an entire screen recording from the full flight. He may have started screen recording beforehand, but all we got was like the first 10 seconds before the drone started auto landing. And I've got to say, he made it a pretty good distance. I think he was at like 6,600 feet away, and he got to about 1,900 feet before the drone just went down into the water.
I think, some people even brought up a good point, why not look around quickly, see if you can find any sort of objects, in the water. Like the sound is always like, there's always something out there, whether it be like a floating barge, whatever, that's an inanimate object. Try to land it on one of those, components, maybe wait out the TFR or try to get on a ski or, see if you can find somebody with a boat to get it. I mean, sometimes you got to go into preservation mode when things like this happen. But this is why, when you get behind the sticks, you can't really claim ignorance. I mean, you can, but it's not really acceptable because you know what you're doing when you're flying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know what? To answer what you just said about how you can land on something that's in the water, the answer was right below him. He was right above a barge that was carrying a portion of a bridge. He could have put the drone down right on that barge. Now, how much room is on there to land? I'm really not sure. Would he want to damage any sort of equipment that's on that barge? Probably not, but I think that my first option would be to look around and find a barge to land on, just like you said.
Because what's the idle time of one of those units? Like,
you know what, I can honestly say, first of all, it depends, but I make these videos about like the best settings, right? So I'll have the drone on for about an hour and a half's time, and it'll drop from 100% to about, I'd say, 60%. So whatever that is, right? You're factoring possibly like 0.5% every minute, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I think that would have been the move, but I get it. Like you're in a panic. You're like, oh crap, what do I do? Natural reaction is try to book it home. If he was higher, if he was like 400 feet, he may have been able to make it to shore. Mm-hmm. I don't know how fast it was descending. It really didn't make a lot of sense, watching the video. But I think the barge would have been the move. Just land on the barge and then hope either A, you can take off after the TFR, or B, you can get somebody to get you on that, unit to get that back, or whatever the case is.
Yeah, and so I've had a couple of instances where I drain my battery really low to like 10% and the drone automatically lands. But the good thing about that is if you increase the altitude, the drone will go up. So sure. I wonder, I'm sure he did try to push the drone upwards, but from what I saw, the drone just continued to steadily go down, and my first reaction would have just tried to increase altitude as quickly as possible.
People said put it in ADI mode, but I don't think ADI mode would have helped. I'm wondering too if maybe disconnecting from the internet, removing cellular, or is it going to be like, oh well, screw it, we already have initiated this. There's a lot of what ifs.
I think it's already there, and I think that it was like there's no way to stop it.
I mean, there's a lot of what ifs. It's like playing poker. It's easier to play the hand after you've seen the cards that were dealt. I mean, these things happen, man. It's like, it sucks. Honestly, I've been there. I've lost numerous drones, but the biggest thing, like in any situation where you're dealing with something like that, is you cannot panic. Like I told you that last week, I tried, I was flying the Evo from the boat and it was going whirly, and I came to the conclusion, I was like, all right, it's, I'm not hitting people. I'm either going to crash it in the water because that's the safest plot for landing, or I'm going to slam it into a tree. I was by an island. So I came to the conclusion, I hopped off the boat because it was shallow enough. I'm like, I'm just walking and it's just doing like figure eights, like, cause
I couldn't even imagine being in that position.
It was going nuts. And I'm like, I was just trying to like safely smash it into a tree, but I ended up getting it down. But if I was panicking, I don't think I would have had the mindset to do that.
Now, if you guys want, I'm going to leave a link down in the description of this podcast. You can go ahead and check out the YouTube video that we're talking about. It has a little bit of Drone X Factor's commentary in there, but if you get far enough into the video, like 2 or 3 minutes, you'll be able to see the screen recording, the whole entire thing in its full entirety. And man, just seeing that drone go down and down and down, and finally it flies along the water for probably a good 10 seconds.
Did you see like the camera sort of hit the water? It looked like at one point it like hit the water and flipped down, and then it came. I was like, oh, it's down. And I'm like, oh no, it's back up.
I think he might have hit one of his custom buttons to shoot the camera downwards, and then he shot it back upwards. But you'll notice at the very end, a small little wave comes up, and that's what took the drone out. Now, if he's over like a flat body of water, that doesn't have any waves or any sort of current in it, I think he might have been fine because the drone was recognizing the water as the ground, and it would have said, okay, do you want to land? And then you swipe to land. I think he could have potentially made it back. I don't know. Again, there's a lot of what ifs in this scenario, but it definitely does raise a lot of questions about how TFRs will be handled in the future by not drone pilots, because you don't want to fly in them, but how drone manufacturers will implement into their drones to keep people not flying in TFRs.
And there's two ways people can perceive the videos that we put out. Either one, you can perceive it as, two objectives, obviously, and we're complaining, but here's something that I think good has come of all this. People who weren't aware that this is a potential issue are now going to basically look at a TFR and be like, all right, I'm not going to risk it because I've seen what could happen. I don't want this to happen. Or B, we just inadvertently boosted Alltel sales.
What's funny is on that video, the top 5 comments were, I'm buying an Alltel Evo. I'm glad I bought an Alltel Evo. My response to that is because I have an Alltel and I love it, but that's not the reason why I bought it. Like, that's like not even one of the top 5 reasons why I bought an Alltel Evo. Like, that's not a reason to buy a drone, is because you're unrestricted. Like, there's restrictions in place from the FAA. Like, and people are like, oh, you were paid by DJI to say that. Yeah. Let me tell you. I'll show you my bank account. It says a different story. Is it negative? After all that poker you've been playing?
It's not. Yeah, maybe.
Well, here's my thing. Whenever I hear about somebody bashing DJI, talking about how they ordered an Alltel drone, I see it's for 2 reasons: customer support and no restrictions. Those are the 2 things why everybody buys an Alltel.
And it's like, it's funny, and I'm not going to really talk about it because, I've been to Alltel. I've seen their support team. I've met all of them.
Oh, you shook all their hands?
Yeah.
Was your hand tired afterwards?
Not really, no. So
they don't have a big support team.
No, it's personal. It's a personable support team.
Makes sense. I guess that just means that not a lot of people have problem with their Alltels, which is a good thing, right?
And that's when I was talking to Tim, that was sort of what he said. Their return ratio, isn't crazy. I got to meet the repair guys. Oddly enough, like, they really don't repair a lot of units, which is pretty cool. But that could also just mean, it's not as a saturated of a product as, everywhere else.
Well, here's something, okay? I just recently got my Phantom fixed. I'm in the process of shooting a lot of footage for like an epic return video. That's probably not going to be all that epic, but just a video about how I got my Phantom 4 Pro fixed. So if you get a drone and it's broken and you've got to get it fixed, what is your first instinct? Do you want to send it to the manufacturer or do you want to send it to a third party? Do you want to send it right back to the people that made it, or do you want to send it to somebody else who's like a certified technician?
Do you want my answer? I'm going to send it to DroneWorks. #ad.
That's fine.
Just that's me. I'm like, I'm going to send it back to that's the one benefit of buying from like a distributor, because I'm going to make them the middle person. I'm going to make them the middle person. But if I didn't have that luxury, I guess I would call the manufacturer. Like when I break my iPhone, I'm like, I'm going to Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, you know how that goes actually with me and Apple.
Yeah, he walks into Apple and throws a little fit. I had to sit at the other end of the table so that it didn't seem like I was with him.
But who got their MacBook fixed?
You did.
That's right. That's right.
Well, so here's the reason that I say this is because I got my Phantom 4 Pro fixed by a third party. DJI Service Repair. I'm always unfamiliar with the name. But I got it fixed by them. And my biggest reason why I don't like sending my drone back to DJI is because they just end up sending you a totally different drone. It's not your drone.
Yeah, so I had a drone sent back to me once from them. It's funny enough. And it was somebody else. Their account information was still on the drone. They didn't even wipe it. It was like some construction company's drone. So I ended up calling them back. And I'm like, hey, this unit has all this information on it. I'm like, you guys also left the SD card in there. So I had to send it back to them. And then they ended up sending me like a brand new one after that whole debacle. But it worked out, I guess, in my favor.
Yeah, well, you see, I'm so OCD about my flight logs, and like And like basically you've got to totally switch over to a brand new drone with these flight logs.
As a new one.
Yeah, it's such a pain. So like in my flight logs or in my DJI Go app, I've got like 4 Phantom 4 Pros or something like that. And for some reason I've got a Phantom 3 Standard in there. I've never flown the Phantom 3 Standard. My Phantom 3 Standard was apparently flown in like Dubai, and it's somehow in my flight records. How does that make any sense?
That doesn't make sense. Were you flying there?
I can tell you that I've never left this continent of North America.
That's so weird, man.
Yeah, it really doesn't make any sense. But I would say that they might be, but I would say that my experience going third party was pretty good, and I'd probably recommend it to other people if they want to get their own drone back. And the good thing about the specific people that fixed my drone is that you can send it to them, they pay for the shipping, they assess your drone, they give you a quote, they tell you how much it's going to cost, and if you don't want to pay that, they ship it back to you and you don't pay a dime.
So we all know what damage you had to your drone. So like what's the cost of a repair like that, like on average?
So they sponsored the video, they took care of it, so I'm not exactly sure how much it would have cost. I would assume potentially anywhere between $100 and $200 just because it was body work. It was the legs, it was the cracked shell. Sure. So yeah, I mean, look, I think that their prices probably won't be any better than DJI. I mean, DJI doesn't charge an egregious amount for repairs, at least in my experience.
Their labor's a little high, I'll tell you. Really? So you remember that Spark, that Ironman Tello Spark?
Yeah.
So I told you I gave it to my boss, and he wrecked it. So he had to send it into DJI because he wrecked the motor. And he says to me, he goes, you know how much they want to charge me to fix the Spark? I said, how much are they going to charge you? He goes, $90. I said, to replace a motor? I said, I'll buy you a new one for that. You know, so it's like a little weird.
I've got to get my Inspire 2 fixed, those back legs.
Yeah, that's crazy. They broke.
Yeah, I've heard it's an easy repair, so I'm going to look up some tutorials. I'm going to try to do it myself, order the parts, save some money, and save some time. But I'm thinking to myself, like, I would love if there was a local drone repair shop that I could drive my drone to, because the Inspire's big. I mean,
yeah,
look,
you don't want to ship that. That's going to cost you a lot in shipping.
Well, okay, so I think that the company would pay for the shipping, but inadvertently, then my repair would go up. The cost of my repair would go up.
Sure. So you should have had them sponsor the Inspire repair.
I know, but you know what? Part of me wants the challenge of trying to fix myself, so I'm going to try that. But otherwise, I would just love to be able to drive somewhere down the street, drop off my drone, have them fix it, go and pick it up once it's done. I mean, that'd be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, maybe once upon a time there will be, you know, things like that, like, you know, you'll have like a Midas for drones. I don't know. That'd be sort of cool.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny when you're talking about being around the repair guys. How does being in a drone repair shop compare to being in a car repair shop?
Oh man, I can't imagine how tedious it, you know, like how tedious the repairs. Because I know how, like, you know, automotive repairs go, but you know, for a drone, like, I don't know, like even like watching you reassemble that parachute that time, I'm just like, man, that's just seems very like all of it seems very tedious. Like a lot can go wrong very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Now here's something interesting that I wanted to bring up. I've got it sitting inside of this bag right here. It's your favorite company, Sandmark.
Oh yeah. How about those guys?
They sent me an anamorphic lens for my iPhone, which that's cool. But what do you think about the anamorphic lens for the Mavic 2 Pro, made by Moment?
So first off, I hate every single YouTuber that was in that promotional video. Like, I don't like them. Like, they're trendy, coffee drinking, hipster wearing. No, I'm joking. They're all fantastic people, but I'm jealous
most of them are not.
I'm jealous. They're not drone flyers.
They're not drone flyers. They're not big in the drone scene. You know,
they're not. I can't take that serious.
A lot of those guys, probably it might have been their second or third time flying.
They'll never touch a drone again. Do I think the product is amazing? I think it's pretty boss. Like, could you imagine hitting a sunset and just getting that lens flare, or even city lights at night? Like, oh man, the possibilities are just insanely endless.
It would be badass. Now I'm on their Kickstarter page right now. It seems like the drone anamorphic lens, the original price is going to be $299 for the Mavic 2 Pro, but right now on Kickstarter you can do $199. You can pledge $199 and get it, so $100 off. Real quick, They have raised $503,000, 2,437 backers, and they've still got about 35 more days to go. And it looks like they're creating filter sets as well for drones. So interesting.
I mean, it is interesting. I just feel like the people that they always use for like their promotional videos are, you know, people with skinny jeans, a beard, and drink like weird coffee.
Yeah. Well, okay. So now here's my biggest thing that I sort of think about. What I've sort of thought about when it comes to these different lenses on drones. How many times do you ever wish you could swap the lens on a drone, right? Because let's be real, if you want sort of like an anamorphic look, I understand that it's going to change the lens flares.
And I want a wider look.
Okay. And
Yeah.
if you go with the Autel, because the Evo's got a wider field of view.
Exactly.
But rather than having to mess with this external gimbal or this external lens on your gimbal, why not just put the black bars on the top and the bottom, fake the anamorphic look, and with a drone, it's a lot easier to kind of fake what the shot looks like, I guess I'm saying. I mean, when you're on the ground, being able to change your lenses, it's definitely something that changes the way you're shooting. It changes the way your image looks. But when you're up in the air, nobody's going to notice the difference if you just have an anamorphic lens on or if you put the black bars on the top and the bottom of the video.
True. This is really true. Yeah, I mean, the only thing with the anamorphic is how the light hits it. I mean, that's why people do anamorphic. Like you watch Michael Bay, Transformers, like his signature deal is that anamorphic lens flare.
And it looks badass.
It looks badass. And yeah, you can put black bars on there. You can fake lens flares, but to get that true natural diffraction of light across that bar, and there's people I've seen, like, we can probably do something. I bet you we can do something with our ND filters. And I would challenge anybody to do this. Hear me out. If we took a piece of monofilament fishing line, thin, super thin monofilament fishing line, like maybe like 5 pound test or thinner, and we taped it on either side of our ND filter, twisted the ND filter on so it goes, dead smack across the line. It's got to be transparent monofilament fishing line. When light hits that line, it's going to reflect because it's a lot of times it's fluorescent and it's going to like refract light. I bet you can get a similar effect doing that.
I just want to know how you thought about that.
Actually, I'll tell you how I did. Armando Ferreira one time shared this like filter, and that's what they used. They used a monofilament fishing line.
Okay.
For a Sony lens, you got to like screw it on the inside of it like a Sigma lens, but that is how I think we can do it. You know what?
That's interesting.
I'm gonna try it. Like, what the hell?
You should
what
try
do I got
it.
to
Why
lose?
not?
Just try it. You know.
But here's my thing, and maybe it's just because of what I shoot that I'm coming from a perspective where I'm like, why would I need this thing? I shoot landscapes. Like, if I want a wider look, I'll fly further, or I'll fly higher, or I'll fly further back. You know, and there's not many areas where a lens flare is going to pop up.
No, I could see, like, I don't know, doing like dramatic real estate or something. It would look dope. Like, it would look hype.
You know what you could do to make your real estate videos dramatic is to put a black bar on the top and the bottom.
I'll put a black bar on you.
Well, look, I don't know. I think that $399 is actually a pretty good price point. I think it's a good price point.
It's expensive in comparison because honestly, I think Polar Pro could like come in and just shit all over them.
Yeah, I said $399. I meant $299, but that really would be interesting if Polar Pro came out with that type of lens. Now,
who's to say they wouldn't? Like, those guys are probably one of the most aggressive accessory maker in the market today.
They are. Polar Pro is great, but here's the thing: is they're definitely more of a company that makes like filters and little niche accessories. They haven't made like a full lens before. I don't doubt that they could do it, that they couldn't do it, but I'm just wondering.
I think Sandmark could make a filter if they weren't busy freaking emailing me asking, when's the review? When's the review? Oh my God. Never again.
Yeah.
They're sending me ND filters for the Mavic 2 Pro.
Oh, nice.
They've decided that may be more my speed.
Makes sense.
I'm just not interested in doing the review on Osmo Pocket ND filters. I think that ship sailed.
Here's my question for you, and this might get a little bit dicey here. You can choose to answer it or not answer it.
I'm going to answer whatever you throw at me.
What do you think of drone branded channels making videos about other things that aren't drones. So now my channel name is Billy Kyle. I can post whatever I want. But what do you think about like a drone channel uploading a video about something that's not drone related? Like the Osmo Pocket, for example.
I mean, okay, so I get it to an extent because it's a DJI product. I think a lot of these drone related channels that do that, and that's one of the benefits of not branding ourselves as a drone channel. We can go in any direction we want and sort of have that, freedom. Like we can be like, never really said I was a drone channel, but whatever. I think I don't know. I don't really agree with it because you've set an expectation to your audience. I think you've set an expectation to your audience. And when you're searchable as a drone, people are coming to you for drone related content. That's like me flipping to ESPN and seeing them doing cooking, like competitive cooking or something.
That's true, man. I never thought about that. That's a great analogy.
Like, why would I be watching ESPN for cooking? Like I would watch, like the Food Channel or something. Like, we got to treat our channels sort of how cable treats our channel. Like sometimes we're not a one size fit all type of channel.
Mm-hmm. That was such a great analogy.
It sure was, dude. I don't think I could have did this if a video was on.
That was epic.
Yeah, I shaved. Did you notice I don't have that like whole porn stash? Did you see the porn stash, dude?
Yeah, you look good.
I think it looked good, dude. Didn't it demand respect?
It did.
It did, dude. It commanded respect. I walked in Circle K and the lady was like, I like what you got going on here. I'm like, and she was like barely. She had tattoos on her arm. I'm like,
Jesus, man. Well, you can tell. I mean, I guess that's the type of ladies you'd attract with that type of mustache.
I slammed the Red Bull on the counter and like she didn't even second guess it. It was like, bleep, bleep.
Oh, she didn't give it to you for free?
No. The stash didn't demand that much respect, but I did.
Now, so let's get back to the talk of TFRs, what we were speaking about in the beginning. I know that you were talking about DJI's procedure in terms of like returning to home first. What is like the prompt that comes up? Do you know offhand? Because I, for one, didn't know. I was with a lot of the people who just thought that the drone was just going to land itself right into the water without any warning.
You get an RTH warning. It'll come across and say you've entered a TFR. The drone is returning to home. Okay. So from my knowledge, and there can be people that can, disagree with this or not, but so Lon, we all know Lon, right? Mm-hmm. He's done extensive research. Like he's like my source of information when it comes to manuals, because this dude, I mean, when I say he reads the terms and conditions, he eats terms and conditions for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So he's read enough about this, and it gives you two prompts. It says you've entered a TFR, the drone is returning to home. The person who was flying that unit had to knowingly disregard that. Okay. Disregard that. You'll get a 30-second warning countdown again, and it's going to give you the same prompt, return to home. He didn't let it return to home. He swiped it. He probably thought, oh, screw it. I'm just going to keep, disregarding it and it'll leave me alone. Little did he know on that third go, 3 strikes, you're out type of thing. And bam, it's auto landing. Because think about it. He was in that TFR for a while. You saw the blue. That is not the color of the water. That is not the color of the water. That's the color of a circle blue dot.
Yeah, and the TFR. The map would have just shown white anyway. If it was just that plain map, I mean, it would have just it wouldn't have shown that color.
Right. And the other reality is, all right, like there's this huge debacle over visual line of sight. He was out 6,000 feet. I'm gonna tell you right now, I can't see shit at 6,000 feet.
You know what's great about flying the Inspire is that when you're 6,000 feet out, you can see it.
I'm sure. But I'm gonna tell you right now, you can't see a Phantom at 6,000 feet. You
can't even see that at 1,000 feet.
I was trying to take a neutral stance on it in my video. Try to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, depending on where he was, because he could have been on the bridge or somewhere on that, that area. You're higher up. There's a possibility. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. But the reality of the fact is, and people can say whatever, who's going to challenge him? The thing with the FAA is they have to physically see somebody behind the sticks for there to be ownership. Why do you think Neistat was never prosecuted for all that crap that went down? They never saw him physically behind the sticks. Like, there's so many loopholes. It's such a broken system. And that's probably why no YouTuber, no anybody has ever been prosecuted today. Can you physically see yourself behind the sticks? Unless if you're sitting there filming yourself like some sort of jamoke doing something illegal, how are they going to know who's behind the sticks?
Yeah,
How?
that's insane.
Unless you would openly say, hey, yeah, that was me behind the sticks. But nobody's going to ever do that. So, I mean, there's a tedious line. It's so broken, man. So broken.
Well, look, when that video first came out and when we were talking about it, I think that we both probably agreed that it's part DJI's fault and it's part the pilot's fault. It's part the operator's fault. But now that I've learned,
it's not really a split decision to an extent. I think it's more operator error.
100%.
Than anything else.
After you just told me what you did about how there's two warnings that came up, 2 prompts. Now I've got to give the benefit of the doubt to DJI that they did the right thing. But I'm also wondering, like, maybe that's with the most up-to-date firmware. And I know that, like, just speaking from flying with these guys, a lot of them, when they're up in New York City, they don't update their drones, because if they do, then that will update their flight restrictions, and they can't fly in many spots with theirs. So he could be running an older firmware that maybe didn't have that failsafe put in. That's just something I'm thinking about.
It's really possible, but the reality is we couldn't see the map fully. I can only see that the water was dark blue, so that tells me he was in that NFC for a while, because he was flying around a bit before that prompt came up again.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have left that NFC and had a little bit of a head start, and maybe how he was descending quickly towards the ground, maybe he would have been able to make it to the beach.
I would love to get the flight log. Would love to see it.
The flight log would tell everything, but I know that since that hit the water, that drone is just gone. The abyss, in the abyss. However, the cache on the DJI application has logs as well.
Yeah, and there's got to be some sort of information buried in those files.
I'm gonna tell you right now, because when I lost my drone that year when the ESC failed over the water, all I did was send the logs from the application to DJI. They determined that the ESC had a failure. The drone was still in warranty, so they took care of it. But that's how they were able to determine that there was a problem, and it wasn't my fault.
That's nice. Now, speaking of drones going down, I was on Ken Herron's show. This is not even a topic we talked about tonight, so totally in left field. But okay. I was on Ken Herron's show a couple nights ago, and Kelly, his co-host, has a GoPro Karma.
Why?
Do you wish that the GoPro Karma succeeded and that GoPro came out with a second drone?
No.
But why? Why no?
I didn't. For one, I never liked the look of it. 2, if GoPro was going to produce a drone, they were going to, no doubt, put their camera in it. And the problem I have with the GoPro cameras are that lens distortion. And even if you put like the D-warp on there, it still has distortion. The other thing too is, like, we've never seen a veritable, aperture, camera from GoPro to date. So I think they would still be behind as far as, camera hardware goes.
The variable aperture is everything to me.
It is, because if I don't want to put an ND filter on, if I leave my ND filters home, or for whatever reason, I'm not screwed.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can crank on a bright sunny day. You crank that up to f11, and look, if you're shooting 1/60th on your shutter speed, it's not going to kill you.
Right, and to me that that is everything. I just think GoPro has been really, really behind the pack. As far as camera goes, they do good with action cameras, stabilization, everything is great. But I think the Osmo Action was even like a stab at, like, hey, people saying, hey, we can do just as good as you can. I mean,
I know, man, but I just wish that GoPro succeeded and that their drones weren't plummeting from the sky, and that they made a second one, because we are in desperate need of any sort of competition in this space.
Yeah, and that's the reality is it's a sad reality, because, like, you look at Parrot's pulling out of, making toy drones. They're dedicated to the Anafi line, whatever that means. But Parrot's not really producing anything really wildly crazy. Unique is almost dead silent, and then you got Autel, which they seemingly only ever have one product line. I love those guys over there, but they only ever have like one product line at a time. It's like you need multiple lines to appease different audiences.
Doesn't it kind of scare you? Like, you think about it, like, what is the next drone we're going to see? We have got no idea.
And that's one of the things. Like, DJI, this is the first year DJI hasn't cannibalized themselves.
They haven't released a drone this year.
they have not released a non-commercial drone this year.
But still, the M210 is just literally like, they're like, all right, let's switch the transmission system. That's
like when your only competition is yourself, you don't have to do much to do well.
Yeah.
You know, you don't.
Yep.
Like they're like, think about it. Like we've had the Mavics for now almost a year, and I'm completely satisfied with my Mavic 2 Pro, Mavic 2 Zoom. Like I'm looking at them right now. Like, you guys are sexy sitting over there looking. Well, look,
that drone. I wish you guys could see him right now. Well, look, I just think that drone still satisfies all of my needs. There's a couple things I tweak about it, but I know you're working on a video, and I think I know exactly what I'm gonna say for that video.
It's gonna be hype, dude.
It's gonna be
we got awesome. a lot of people gonna be in that, so it's gonna be cool. And I'm glad that we decided to bring the podcast back, because this was sort of festering at me. Like, you know, we have this channel, it's just been sitting here, and people have asked, you know, on my video, I've seen people ask on your videos, and people have asked on the podcast channel, and I feel like we've sort of ghosted people for a little bit, but it was a nice break. We needed a break.
It's funny that we're saying we need a break after like 30 episodes, but look,
that was a hard 30 episodes.
Here's the thing, is that you kind of get a feel for what you're doing after the first, you know, couple times that you do it. And I felt like we got into a little bit of a groove with the podcast, but if we continued that groove, we probably would both drive each other crazy, because we were doing an insane amount of traveling for this channel we were just starting. And also, I just think coming from it, like the video perspective of it is a little bit distracting. If you guys are just listening to our voice, and like I watch a couple of podcasts or listen to them on YouTube, and I almost feel like I'm missing out if I'm not watching it, you know? So then I sit there and I'm watching the podcast, but I'd rather not even give these guys who are watching this the option of watching, because then all they have to do is listen, throw their phone in their pocket, pop their AirPods in, pop their earphones in, and they're good. They're listening.
And that's the thing. Like, you don't feel like you're missing out. So you're traveling in a car. Obviously, we don't want anybody sitting there staring at a phone screen. I mean, I'm guilty of doing this. But you just throw it on your Bluetooth, and you have the sweet and gentle sounds of Billy Kyle and a Ken Dono, and on your radio. It's like, what could be better? You know, listen to us vent about the latest occurrences. And I think the fact is, too, we can keep this way more casual. Like, this is a better conversation. I don't feel like we're cutting each other off. I don't feel like I have to sit up straight, not use my Drone Valley mug. Like, I can sip my coffee
out of any mug you want. You don't have to use that Drone Valley mug.
But I'm going to use the drone. Dude, the best part of waking up is a Drone Valley cup.
Drone Valley needs to pay you, man.
I know, dude. I've probably single-handedly sold more mugs for Drone Valley.
I see Russ from 51 Drones has one now, too, and he's posting all about it.
I'm gonna tell you right now, he's only posting about that cup because of my Instagram stories. I inspired him.
You need to chase after Drone Valley for some compensation.
I need like an affiliate link or something. So if he's listening, I would like an affiliate link, 2% commission fee, and whatever you're paying Russ. That's it.
Well, look, guys, that's going to wrap up this first episode, even though Ken doesn't want to call it episodes.
I don't want to call it episodes. Let's call it conversations. This wraps up the first conversation.
Yeah, this wraps up the first flight time. And, we hope you guys enjoyed. Again, I found this casual conversation to be pretty cool. Let us know what you think down in the comment section. I'm in the process of getting this on YouTube. I'm going to get it back up on Spotify, as well as, everything.
Everywhere.
Yeah. iTunes. We'll be everywhere.
We're going to be worldwide. What is that thing? Prestige worldwide.
From Step Brothers. You might have just gotten us a copyright strike or something. I don't know.
Probably. Damn it. We're not monetized, but whatever. I mean,
it's cool.
I hope you guys really do enjoy like this style, because I feel this was way better.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Ken, thanks for popping on with me, and we'll catch you guys next time. And also, wait. I want to do this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. All right.
You have my undivided attention.
So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, guys. Look forward to some new episodes. We're probably going to drop them in the morning for your commute to work. And then, they'll be there for you if you want to listen to it on your commute back from work.
I'm hype.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you in the next one.
Later.